A tiny country could transform India's foreign policy. Its massive oil reserves could help India cut its dependence on the Middle East. But there's just one problem. It is threatened by conflict and needs India's support. Now that Indian partner is Guyana. And Guyana is a small country of just about 800,000 people located on the North Atlantic coast of South America. Now Guyana is clashing with its much larger neighbor, Venezuela, for control of the oil-rich territory of Essequibo. Now Essequibo has been a part of Guyana for over 100 years, and it is set to transform the fortunes of this small country. Over the last couple of years, the discovery of large reserves of oil in Essequibo has made Guyana the world's newest and most exciting oil power. However, the trouble is that the government of Venezuela, which also heads an oil-rich country, claims the territory of Essequibo as well. In fact, it has done so for decades. Venezuela's government argues that since both Essequibo and Venezuela were both administered by Spain during the colonial era, Venezuela now has a right to claim the territory of Essequibo. Now, it's important to note that Venezuela's claim has been heavily disputed by Guyana, and this whole matter is under arbitration at the International Court of Justice. But there are fears that Venezuela could try to seize the region by force. That's because Venezuela's government recently held a nationwide referendum on the issue. It asked the people of the country whether they supported the government's claim over the Essequibo region. It also asked if Venezuelans would agree to oppose by all means, in accordance with the law, Guyana's use of waters near Essequibo. It has also asked for the creation of a new state that incorporates the region. Now, the country's president, Nicolas Maduro, urged the people to back the government's claim and has even promised to reconquer Essequibo. Now, this referendum took place last week, with a massive 95% of the population backing the government's position. It's also important to note that many doubt the legitimacy of this referendum, given President Maduro's tendency to rig elections. Experts suggest that President Maduro is stirring up nationalist sentiment to unite the country behind him. Venezuela has experienced a severe economic downturn as well as political instability in recent years. And claiming Essequibo allows Maduro to try and raise his flagging popularity. Now, all of this has put Guyana on edge. Essequibo makes up a significant chunk of the country's territory, and these new oil reserves could literally transform Guyana's future. So there's too much at stake for the country to sit back and relax, which explains why it has gone on the defensive. While the country's president Irfan Ali has stated that the country is prepared to defend its land, it has also reached out to major powers to talk down Venezuela and reach a diplomatic solution to the conflict. Now this is where India comes in. India has had big plans for Guyana and has invested a lot in the relationship over the last couple of years. There are a few reasons for this. The first, of course, is the energy relationship. As we mentioned before, Guyana is the world's newest oil power. Since 2015, around 11 billion barrels of oil reserves have been discovered around the country. And that gives Guyana the 17th largest oil reserves in the world. For India, Guyana's massive oil finds can help guarantee its own energy security. India imports over 80% of its oil needs from abroad, and it has tried to diversify its sources of supply away from countries that are largely concentrated in the Middle East. By some estimates, Guyana will produce around 1 million barrels per day by the end of the decade, which could make it an important supplier of energy to India. And here's the interesting bit. Guyana also wants India's help to develop its oil sector. The country's vice president told Mint that Guyana wants Indian investment in its oil sector, as well as skilled engineers and technicians from India. So India needs Guyana, and Guyana needs India. These two countries also share a strong political and cultural relationship. Guyana is also home to a fairly large Indian diaspora of around 350,000, which makes up a significant chunk of a total population of 800,000. Now, these groups were brought to the country as labourers during the era of British colonial rule. And key politicians in the country, like current President Irfan Ali and Vice President Bharat Jagdeo, are of Indian descent. Indian origin politicians are major supporters of better ties with India in the country's divided politics. And as such, India's outreach has been aggressive to this diaspora. In fact, President Irfan Ali was the chief guest at the Pravasi Bharatiya Divas held in January this year. So that outreach and connection gives India a political edge with Guyana. India has also been an active supplier of development aid and defense equipment to the country. So for all of these reasons, Guyana matters to India. And Venezuela's claim over the Essequibo region has endangered India's plans for cooperation with Guyana on energy. Now, Guyana's President Irfan Ali made clear that it has reached out to India, along with countries like the United States, to encourage Venezuela to do what is right and ensure that they do not act in a reckless or adventurous manner that could disrupt the peace within this zone. While India has stakes in Guyana, it also has a strong established energy relationship with Venezuela, which has supplied oil to India in the past. Now, this relationship was disrupted due to American sanctions, but with those sanctions now easing, India is all set to start importing Venezuela's oil once again. As such, India is caught in a delicate situation, and it hasn't made clear what its response will be. It may want to support Guyana, but it doesn't want to offend Venezuela. With the clock ticking on this crisis, New Delhi will have to make its decisions quickly and correctly.